This is VOA Africa.
Good evening, I'm Esther Githo. It's Tuesday, May 7th. This is Africa 54. Rainbow Nation, Rainbow Ballots. 48 parties are contesting in South Africa's national election. Zimbabwean villagers resist a Chinese company's mining project. And a closer look at the fight against malaria in Uganda. South Africa's national election is set for Wednesday, and it's expected to be dominated by three main parties: the African National Congress, the Democratic Alliance, and the Economic Freedom Fighters. But there are a wide range of other smaller unconventional players in this vote, with 48 parties on the ballot. Let's look at a few small upstart parties vying for a piece of the pie. VOA's Anita Powell reports from Johannesburg.
It's going to be a colorful election in the Rainbow Nation. 48 political parties are contesting this year's South African election. The smaller, newer parties have wildly different aims. Some, like the African Transformation Movement, are church-based, whereas others are aligned with more traditional political views, or have niche issues to push in national government. But they all seem to share one thing: dissatisfaction with the political status quo. The head of the ATM party, founded by the South African Council of Messianic Churches, says they couldn't get the change they wanted through partnership with the ruling ANC.
We believe what the people of South Africa truly need now, they need people that will genuinely serve them. So as the ATM, we're here to serve the people of South Africa, and we're here to make South Africa to be that beautiful country that was witnessed at the time when we defeated apartheid.
It's likely the ruling African National Congress will dominate this poll, followed by the Democratic Alliance and Economic Freedom Fighters. Even so, political analysts say the small parties play a valuable role in government. South Africa's system of proportional representation means small parties don't need a large number of votes. 50,000 is all it takes to get one of 400 parliament seats.
If they get support, they won't necessarily get big numbers, but their presence will add some real spice to the parliament that's going to be formed shortly.
That's exactly what the tiny 6-week-old Capitalist Party hopes to do. It has only 10 candidates, not enough to dictate terms, but enough, its leader believes, to play a role that other parties currently don't.
They're all promising that government is going to create more jobs. They're all promising that they're going to cut back on government spending, and they're all promising better levels of education. We don't believe that they have the capability to deliver on any of those things, simply because they lack the expertise to do so.
The Socialist Revolutionary Workers' Party is another new entrant and aims to end the capitalist system.
We believe that we represent the aspirations of the 23 million members of the working class of South Africa, whose aspirations have frankly been ignored by the capitalist ANC government for the last 25 years.
At the end of the day, says political analyst Angelo Fick, the dominant ANC will retain more seats than any other party. But the varied opposition, he says, reflects a healthy democracy, even if most of the parties only manage seats in provincial government.
And so the plethora of choices in front of the South African electorate is not for me a sign of too much too soon. It is in fact a sign of the vibrancy of the contestation around ideas.
The Rainbow Nation votes in all of its glorious colors on May 8th. Anita Powell, VOA News, Johannesburg.
A horrific fuel tanker explosion and fire has killed at least 58 people in Niger. The disaster occurred late Sunday night on the highway linking Niger's international airport to the capital, Niamey, as people were attempting to siphon gasoline from an overturned fuel tanker. Investigators believe that a spark from a motorcycle may have triggered the explosion. The country's Interior Minister, Mohamed Bazoum, says 55 charred bodies were recovered at the scene and 3 people later died due to the severity of their burns. Bazoum says 37 people were hospitalized with burn injuries and many of them are in critical condition. Niger's President Mahamadou Issoufou on Monday visited some of the victims in the hospital. A bushfire fanned by gusty winds has gutted 4 villages in South Sudan's western Bahr Ghazal region, killing 33 people, according to Atene Wek Atene, the president's spokesman. The spokesman said in a statement Monday that the death toll is likely to rise and that 60 people are in critical condition after Sunday's fire. He says the injured are receiving medication, but because of the remoteness of the area, help has been slow in arriving. The State Information Minister says the fire has destroyed 138 houses in the villages of Korok, East County, and killed 10,000 cattle. Some Zimbabweans are resisting a move by a Chinese investor to open a quarry mine in a village just outside Harare. Opponents say the project is likely to displace about 20,000 people who live in the area. But as Columbus Mavunga reports from Harare, a representative of the Chinese company is denying the claim.
People in Domboshawa, a rock area about an hour drive northeast of Harare, are mobilizing against a Chinese company's move to open a quarry mine here. This 70-year-old woman says the proposed project by Ainhua Jiang company will damage the sanctity of this area, which she says has sacred caves, springs, and snakes.
The Chinese are the money monkers of the Zimbabweans, because when they monk them, they take the riches here, they take it to China. They don't develop our places, so we don't need them here. Seriously, with a deeper heart, with a deeper mind, seriously, we are disappointed. We said no and no, and that is malfucated no. But I'm just standing for the unborn children of this inheritance and for this legacy.
Energy Mutodi, the area's representative in parliament and deputy information minister, also opposes the planned quarry project. He denies his position on the issue goes against President Emmerson Mnangagwa's mantra that Zimbabwe is open for business.
It's open to business, but not business that is going to affect our environment. To develop, yes, but let our environment remain intact. We cannot have a situation where people come here, mine, and take away the proceeds.
Mutodi added that the Chinese company promised to create 500 local jobs, but so far has advertised only 40 jobs for the $500 million project. The Chinese embassy in Harare refused to comment on the issue, saying it was not a Beijing project. At a meeting with the villagers, a Ainhua Jiang representative denied that the 33-hectare project would displace thousands of local residents.
People took the wrong information from whoever they listened to. No one is going to be displaced. This project is not going to affect, even a grave is not going to be moved. But there's a misconception of saying 20,000 people are going to be removed. We propose that the graves will be fenced. There's a water well, a spring which is just above the gravesite. We also propose that water well will be fenced too.
Zimbabwe's Environmental Management Agency is expected to make the final decision on whether the Chinese company can go ahead with its planned quarry mining project here. Columbus Mavunga for VOA News, Harare.
The Democratic Republic of Congo's President Felix Tshisekedi clocked 100 days in office this past weekend, but he is yet to appoint a cabinet and a prime minister. Tshisekedi's presidency marked the first peaceful transition of power in Congo since its independence from Belgium in 1960. The Congolese people are anxious to see him fulfill most of the promises he made during his inauguration, chief among them improving the living conditions of the country's 86 million people, fight corruption, and install a fair judicial system. Now, for more on President Tshisekedi's first 100 days in office, journalist Anastasie Tudieshe joins us by phone from Kinshasa. Good evening, Anastasie.
Good evening.
Now, critics of the president have pointed out that he has not named a cabinet, he has not named a prime minister. How has he responded to this?
He has simply not. His response has been actions, actually, pretty spectacular within the Congolese context. His actions that I would sum up in 3 words: travel, expression, it's a French word, and infrastructures. The president has been traveling relentlessly in Africa, to the U.S., but also inside the country. Mid-April, he has visited Goma and Beni in the eastern part, hurt by violence and Ebola virus. Some critics would say that these travels were a way for him to seek legitimacy. The second word is dispersion. In English, I would translate it in easing of political tension. And to do so, he has released political prisoners. He is still allowing Martin Fayulu, the presidential candidate who claims he is the actual winner, to challenge his legitimacy. This is unheard of in DRC. And he also, and that was spectacular, he placed heads of public enterprises like telecommunications or transportation because they were accused of bad management.
Now, Anastasie, in spite of these challenges and some of the achievements he's made, how do the Congolese people rate his performance so far?
Well, to be honest, it really depends on who they voted for. People give him credit for the related peace throughout the country, except for the eastern part, naturally. His liberalism is praised as well. But for Martin Fayulu, for instance, who claims he still is the actual president of the country, nothing but wasting the presidential budget has been done, and it's a record time at that. But one thing is for sure is whether people support or challenge him. The common feeling here is worried about his ability to actually change the country, since Mr. Kabila's political platform is overwhelmingly in majority in national and provincial assemblies as well as in Senate. Does not sound like a recipe for the change the Congolese people are demanded through their vote.
Okay, and now when you look at some of the promises he made, it was like improving the living conditions of the population. Of course, there have been challenges with Ebola and other issues, the economic. But what are some of the major things that he promised during his inauguration that he has been able to actually fulfill?
Well, the first one that comes to mind and that I think is the most spectacular and really surprising is that he kept his promise of releasing the political prisoners. That was a very strong move, a very strong decision, and that was really praised by the people here too.
Anastasie, there have been also some critics saying that he is not really the president himself. He's not able to exert his authority because some of them feel that he still has to listen to his predecessor, Joseph Kabila. Is that the case, or what are you hearing from analysts?
That is exactly what some people say, some critics would say. And really what I am perceiving, what I'm seeing here is that instead of responding word to word, he's trying to show that he wants to make peace with the previous one, because that's what he said very humbly. The previous president is the one who has the experience of power, so I have to talk with him, I have to share experience with him, and that's what he's trying to do. He is also criticized because his political platform doesn't have the power in national assemblies or in provincial assemblies, since Mr. Kabila's political platform is in majority. But they are creating what they call a coalition, a political coalition, and they try to balance it. Will he manage to do that? That's what the future will tell us.
Well, Anastasie, I guess we have to leave it there for now. We'll be following up with you a few days from now to see what's going on in Congo. Thank you so much for talking to us.
Thank you.
Anastasie Tudieshe is a journalist from DRC. She was speaking to us from Kinshasa. Now tell us what you think about Africa 54 and the stories we cover. Join the discussion on Facebook. The address is Africa 54. We're also streaming our show live on Facebook, so check us out and share our show with your friends. Also check out our headlines 24/7 on voaafrica.com. Coming up, Uganda's efforts to combat malaria.
Portuguese,
Bantu,
Arabic.
It is the beat.
The African beat that counts.
The beat does all the translations.
It cuts across all languages and gives us the understanding that this is the African beat.
It is so distinct
and adhesive.
It binds us together.
African Beat on the Voice of America. For more information, visit our website at www.voanews.com/AfricanBeat.
I am Shaka Sali, host and senior editor of VOA's international call-in talk show, Straight Talk Africa.
Today we'll examine the tobacco industry.
We pretty much touch on anything that you can think of. Politics, health issues, human rights issues, you name it, we talk about it. The issues that we discuss are pertinent to most people on the African continent. A very, very rare and unique opportunity to interact with their leaders.
I'm Clara Frank, and here's what's trending. Sometimes referred to as fashion's biggest night out, the Met Gala 2019 was a pinnacle of iconic style. A fundraising benefit for the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York City, the event welcomed celebrities, stars, and industry big shots alike. This year, the gala also precedes the grand opening of the Costume Institute's annual fashion exhibition, Camp, Notes on Fashion. The red carpet celebrated looks both silly and sublime. Next up, chocolate, vanilla, or maggots. Insect ice cream is up for grubs in Cape Town, South Africa. Made from fly larvae, the sweet treat is a high-protein and sustainable alternative to dairy-made ice cream. Insects are typically environmentally friendly because they need very little land, water, and food to grow. They aren't at risk of climate change and aren't impacted by drought. As for the health benefits, they produce a lot of protein, fat, and minerals. And finally, Sony Pictures and Marvel have released a new trailer for Spider-Man: Far From Home. But for the first time ever, they've issued a spoiler warning before the release. The reason? Far From Home takes place after the events of the record-breaking Marvel blockbuster Avengers: Endgame and references that movie. The new Spider-Man hits theaters this summer, and that's what's trending today.
The long-awaited United Nations report on biodiversity has been released, and as we reported last week, the extensive study shows how human activity is threatening the mass extinction of 1 million of the world's plant, insect, and animal species. However, the report also suggests we can fix the problem. Here's VOA's Kevin Enox.
How much damage are humans doing to planet Earth? That's the key question in a report by the Intergovernmental Science Policy Platform on Biodiversity and Ecosystem Services, or IPBES. The headlines are stark. Nature in all its diversity is declining at rates unprecedented in human history. And more than 1 million species are directly threatened with extinction, from our closest cousins to the largest inhabitants of our oceans, skies, and ground.
We've lost much of our native forest, much of our native wetlands, and effectively biodiversity needs to be considered as an equally important issue as climate change. It's not just an environmental issue, it is an economic issue, a development issue, a security issue, a social, moral and ethical issue. The time for action clearly is now.
The report concludes that land-based species have declined by at least 20%, mostly since 1900. Amphibian species have declined by more than 40% during that period, and more than a third of all marine mammals are threatened. And human activities, from ocean pollution and overfishing to human-caused climate change and land degradation from farming and logging, are the primary reason it's all happening. The consensus among the 150 nations that approved the report, including the U.S., is clear. Something has to change.
Business as usual is a disaster. We're going to continue to change the climate. We're going to continue to lose biodiversity. But we can have a more sustainable future. If we choose the right policies, the right technologies, if we change our behaviour, we can have a much more sustainable future for our children and grandchildren.
The solution, the authors say, is to begin thinking of all forms of nature, from giraffes and elephants to lizards and birds, as having value. Adding their value into our own attempts to clean up the mess we've made can solve the problem, they say.
We need to have incentives in place for clean technologies, clean practices. We need to recognise not just GDP, or gross domestic product, is a measure of economic growth. We have to recognise that nature is a major thing of natural capital, along with human capital, built capital and social capital.
The report concludes that it is still possible to head off the worst predicted outcomes if humans start moving aggressively towards sustainability. Kevin Enix, VOA News.
And it's time for our health report. And joining us now is Africa 54 health correspondent Leno Mudu with information from a newly released report on malaria. Leno?
Thank you, Esther. Well, the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals Target 3 aims to end epidemics such as malaria by the year 2030. Get this, in 2017, 291 million people were infected with malaria and 435,000 of them died. The majority were children under age 5 in sub-Saharan Africa. Despite constant challenges and the threat of malaria in communities and countries, observers say some nations in sub-Saharan Africa are making progress in fighting the mosquito-borne disease. One of them is Uganda. The country has seen a 30% decrease in malaria cases this past 2 years and a 57% reduction in malaria deaths across all ages. In a unique approach to fight malaria, some Ugandan schools are being used as a way to change the culture around malaria. Joining me today is Biona Eriachim Ntairaho, headmaster of the Walioba Primary School, a malaria smart school. Mr. Ntairaho, welcome to the show. And also joining us is Dr. Jimmy Opigo. He is Assistant Commissioner for the National Malaria Control Division at the Uganda Ministry of Health and National Malaria Control Program Manager. Dr. Opigo, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you and very warm greetings.
Let me start with you, Dr. Opigo. Malaria Smart School, what is this?
Now, Malaria Smart School is one of our approaches and our efforts to protect children in schools. Beyond that, it's also our initiative we utilize to influence the families, trying to create the children to be our change agents so that they adopt some practices which influence the home and the wider community.
Influence children and communities, and you, Professor Ntahibaro, if I can call you that, you are a school teacher. Your school, Walioba Primary School, is one of the schools that are implementing this program. Talk to us about what it consists of concretely and what is the children's involvement.
Yeah, thank you very much. Walioba is a school, it's a smart school that is promoting this program. The children, first of all, they are acting as change agents to the communities. We are using them to share with the parents, enlighten them that malaria can kill. It's a disease that kills. We are using them to sensitize the communities on how to use the mosquito nets. The children themselves are free now to talk about malaria because of this program. They are free to talk about malaria. They are able to develop messages that stimulate the communities in responding towards the fight of malaria to zero. We use them also as, to sensitize the communities on how they can destroy breeding places. They are developing messages. When you come to Walioba, that school, you'll see they have a malaria corner. They have different messages that they put across. They write, and in every compound, they have those activities. We have a drama group, a malaria drama group, that goes out to the communities how to sensitize the communities, talk about malaria, how we can prevent malaria. They even teach the communities on how to spread the net, to hang the nets. The importance of using the nets in the community.
Very interesting, Dr. Opigo. Hearing Mr. Ntahiribao describe what is happening, it seems a lot has to do with behavior change. And that's one of the things that experts say. They say that fighting malaria very much has to do with communities changing behavior. Talk to us about that.
Absolutely. Malaria is a communicable disease. All communicable disease move from person to person depending on the practices and behaviors people adopt. Now, the health system and donors can only stop at providing the communities tools like mosquito nets, but it is up to the households to consistently, every day, pull it down and sleep in it, and for the parents specifically to carefully tuck in the kids and
quickly, this program is done in partnership with other groups and organizations, including the President's Malaria Initiative. Talk to us about this partnership.
Now, the U.S. President's Malaria Initiative is a funding and operating mechanism which supports several countries, Uganda inclusive. In Uganda, for example, they invest over $32 million per year to provide mosquito nets, to spray households, to provide treatment for malaria. We work with them very closely as government of Uganda, and this has greatly impacted onto the lives of the community.
Fantastic. And before we wrap, Mr. Ntahiribao, what kind of concrete impact have you seen through this program?
Yeah, it is indeed, it's a very good program. One, it has improved on the attendance of learners. We are now we are registering less absenteeism in schools. We have gone back. We used to have, I would say, now we are having practical lessons. We are teaching science, but on a practical line. It has also narrowed the gap between the parents and the learners, because they are training them or telling them that, do you know, we are supposed to sleep under a treated mosquito net. Then it has also brought closer the health workers to work with the schools.
Okay, great. And we have to leave it there, but I just wanted to mention that it's a model that you plan to spread across the country. Absolutely.
Yes, absolutely. And it is our flagship project to be able to reach all, but not only reach all, but build a sustainable malaria culture.
We have to leave it there, Dr. Opigo. Thank you so much, both of you, for coming today. And that was our guest today. We thank them from coming all the way to Uganda. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Leno. And that's our show for today. From all of us here in Washington, good night.